How do you like this? This was a headline, Everything Everywhere. This was last year. I taught this last year here, and all the students were and the winter conference, they were just shocked. Microplastics are everywhere. They are shed from items like your clothing. Do you know what makes this nice, drip dry, not wrinkle clothing? Plastic that's been microplastics put into tires, into broken down trash produced in factories. Tiny pieces of plastic debris have been the subject of a number of grabby headlines of late, which proclaim they've infiltrated the farthest reaches of the ocean, the snows of the Antarctic, even the air we breathe. And listen, now they're finding when a doctor in a hospital was taking a blood draw. It's rare that a doctor does instead of the nurse, but it was a special test he was doing. And as he took the blood and took it to the lab, he did his microscopic study as a hematologist. You know what he found? For the first time documented, plastic particles in the bloodstream. I mean, it's not just we have Coke bottles everywhere. And by the way, 11% of all garbage in the world are Coca-Cola bottles. They just established that yesterday. Bloomberg said that now the people that divest their money from companies that are bad, they've found out 1 out of every 9 pieces of trash in the world is a Coke bottle. So that's, watch out for Coke stock. Do you know what number 2 is? Pepsi, of course. You know what number 3 is? All those water companies. They have those water bottles. Those are what are the size of Texas floating out there between us and Australia. All this Coke bottle stuff and all the styrofoam, like those from, I don't even know what, we call them QTs and Speedways, whatever Wawa, is that what they have here? Where you can get or used to be able to get a styrofoam 30, 40 some ounce thing. Where does that go when you toss it in the bin? Well, a lot of them go to that gyre by Australia. I don't know how they get there, but they go there. So they said that's what it was. That was last year. Look at this. What's the date on this? April 17th. Let's see. Come on, come up. That was 9 days ago. Now the doctors have found evidence that microplastics are starting to filter out. In our lungs, the blood, our respiration of blood, there's that transference of the oxygen molecules, and you need hemoglobin, remember, to link to that and go through your bloodstream and feed all of your organs. And guess what that little transfer is also doing? Not just oxygen anymore. Plastic is going in the blood, and now it's filtering out in the brain, in the liver. It's amazing to think humanity is poisoning and killing itself. You know what plastic is made of, right? Petroleum. Most gas doesn't go to cars. It goes to your clothes. It goes to that table, the chair you're sitting at, this carpet. This is all petroleum. People that say we're going to stop oil, really? Are you going to wear clothes? Are you going to drink anything? Everything is plastic nowadays. It's unbelievable, and it's all petroleum. Well, let's go to our agriculture. This is from the Belgian paper in Europe. I love it. It's called the Brussels Times. I love how Europe treats things. PFOS and PFOA found in soil samples, but not in water or vegetables. Isn't that comforting? I thought that is they find the most positive spin. In America, they find the most negative spin, if you've noticed that. In Europe, they're trying the positive way. And here's the article. 2 harmful compounds. These are known as the forever chemicals, if you've ever heard of that. It's what is in all the wrappers of everything. When you go to supermarkets, it's all PFOAs and PFOSs. It's what they put into wrappers that they wrap any food in when you go to Chipotle or when you go to McDonald's or when you go to, Chick-fil-A or when you go to the grocery store and your whatever you bought, like your breakfast roll, is on a piece of paper. It's coated with this PFOA and PFOS stuff, which no one thinks. So are all the pans that you cook at. The non-stick pans that you have to replace because the non-stick stuff goes somewhere. Where does it go? See, it's going into soil and water, but not vegetables. So what they said, they've taken almost all samples taken from chicken runs in vegetable gardens, compost, eggs, house dust, and serum. They're finding this poison, But it's not in the water or vegetables. Again, look at that date. That was class 2 years ago. This is today. Now they've found the PFOAs and S's, these forever chemicals, are now in our bodies. And this was the article. I didn't record the clip. It's too long. It's 48 minutes long. But it says the PFAS chemicals are used in thousands of products aimed at making life easier. See, that's what humanity has done to kill ourselves. Fallen humanity wants everything to get easier and easier. We don't like hard work. In fact, left to ourselves, we're lazy and everything else. And that fallenness, that wanting everything to be easy, has made those chemicals now almost everywhere, including in human blood, and they're being linked now to severe health problems. I'll give you an example. When my mother worked in a factory in World War II, the women at the factories, and I don't have my pen, they were painting the dials on the instrument panels of airplanes. And they had these paintbrushes, and they had this luminescent glow-in-the-dark paint, and they would take their paintbrush and they would go like this to make the tip really pointed. They'd dip it in the paint. They would paint the letters on these airplane dials. Then they would go and make the point of their brush, and they'd do the next airplane dial. No one told them that the paint was deadly. And the women in that factory, by the Korean War, all had horrible mouth cancer, where they had tumors everywhere from twirling a brush. Now, who would do that today? We think about that. Yeah, but the same people on their break were doing what? Smoking. And how long did they hide the fact that smoking led to the greatest generation of lung cancer that the world has ever seen, from all that filtering out the tar of cigarettes? So we have a long history of hiding in our culture globally pathogens, things that are deadly. Well, look at this. The clothing, the packaging for our fast food, all that stuff is putting poison that now, if you look, do you know what the highest, fastest cancer rate in our country is right now? 30 to 40-year-olds. It used to be us. It's not anymore. It's the young people just out of college starting their career, and they're getting so many unusual cancers. And that's what this study is saying. They're linking it back to those people are the first generation that kind of lived their whole life eating on PFOAs, PFOSs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, how do you like this? The British came and bought a motorhome, the Guardian UK, and they went to all 50 states. And their motorhome was one giant mobile lab. Now, you would think America would have done this, but they did this and drove around and went to diners, they went to fast food places, they went to nice restaurants, they stayed in hotels, and everywhere they went, they got their little glass and they filled it with water and ran out to their motorhome and tested it. And see, the graphic shows they have a little plastic glass from every state of the country and every major area. And this is their article. We sampled tap water across the U.S. and found arsenic. You know what arsenic is? It's a long-term slow poison. Lead, do you know what lead is? It's what killed the nobility of the Roman Empire. They had lead water pipes, and it leads to all kinds of ghastly organic failure and all kinds of birth defects and everything else, and toxic chemicals. In the 9 months investigation by The Guardian, that's the newspaper in Britain, and Consumer Reports, that's the American place that tests everything, we found alarming levels of forever chemicals, arsenic and lead, in water samples coast to coast. The earth is dying. Now, look at that picture. See that? That's American agriculture. In fact, that's global agriculture. We spray everything. You only want to see wheat. You don't want any weeds. You only want to see sunflowers. You don't want to see weeds out there growing. You just want corn. How do they get those fields? You ever driven by and seen miles of rows of waving corn? If you'd have seen them 40 years ago, you would have seen weeds everywhere. No weeds. Why? Well, they spray it. You see right there? Weed killer chemical glyphosate is found in 80% of Americans' urine. You know what they found out when they're doing the urine samples to see how your body is doing when you go in and get your annual physical or whatever? Do you know what they find? 80% of people have that weed killer. inside of their body. And by the way, it is a carcinogen, and there's a huge, the same company, I believe, that makes Bayer aspirin and Bayer children's aspirin makes glyphosate. I mean, they preserve health and stop fevers, and they do that. Now, this one is the worst. This is this week. On the right-hand side is a normal chicken house where all of your chicken soup and McNuggets and chicken whatever at Chick-fil-A comes from, and all those eggs from Egg McMuffins. 250,000 chickens you can see there. They live about 18 to 24 months. They can start laying eggs at about 4 months, and they lay them for about 20 months, and then they become chicken soup. This is normal. They walk around on bedding, and they peck away and eat their corn, and everything that drops to the floor, their feathers, their droppings, the food they don't eat, and all that bedding material that they scratch around in, they take the chickens out when they go become chicken soup, and they just plow that stuff, and what do you think they do with it? They sell it to the left side. Now, see the article, if you read it, on the right, avian flu outbreak raises a disturbing question. Is our food system built on poop? Now, this is, I think that's the Washington Times. No, that's the Los Angeles Times. And what they said is it's perfectly legal and it's completely normal that the droppings, the bedding, is plowed up, sold to the dairy farmers who put that into the silage. You know what silage is? It's all the hay and alfalfa and grass and stuff that the dairy cows need. So they have two chutes coming together into an auger, and they're mixing up the feathers, the droppings, the defecation, what's a nice word to say, of the chickens, and it says there are beaks and feet and everything else in there, and it just goes in, because they just plowed it into dump trucks, and it goes in with the grass and the alfalfa, and they mix it together, and they said the cows love it. Well, look at the left. Bird flu is spreading to more farm animals. Are milk and eggs safe? Now, I didn't have time this morning, but you know what this morning said? 20% now of eggs and milk are showing the newest avian virus in milk and eggs. But they can't figure out how. I mean, if you can't get infected, if those birds are walking around sick and messing, and you're plowing that and feeding it to the dairy cows, and the cows are making milk inside the same system that's chewing up all those feathers and beaks and droppings. Do you understand what I mean? This is where we are. I'm only telling you that to say that at every level, the earth is dying. So, what does the Bible say? Well, lost humanity rejected their Creator and Redeemer. So Christ the King returns as judge. That's the tribulation. Then for 1,000 years, Jesus keeps his promises, showing what he can do in renewing the earth. So the perfect world is coming. Jesus brings it. Think about it. At the end of the tribulation, the whole earth is kind of smoldering. I mean, it's just like those hailstones and all the scorchings and everything. It's just like a mess. And Jesus comes back and makes it like the Garden of Eden. That's what the millennium is. It's the renewing of the earth.